Hello, it's Attorney Mike Gravel coming to you from Chicago, as usual. Home sweet home, where the Wi-Fi usually works. And I've got my blue Yeti. Life is good. All right, so I did a video a while back. I can't remember. I'll put a link to it in the description below. I'll put a link to the prior video in the description below. But it's the guy. Not only is he a Planet Fitness member, we know this, but he had Shaggy on his witness list. Well, he is headed to trial. In fact, it's the first day of trial right here. It starts the pretrial conference and jury selection. They're going to call witnesses tomorrow. If it's on, I'll do it. Let's get started, shall we?
Boy, I'm just getting railroaded here.
So you ready to proceed today?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. First thing I'm going to do this morning is have the same conversation with Mr. Milton that I had at his original court appearance in this matter. And I have been told that Judge Meyer had the same conversation with you, Mr. Milton. That is, you're sitting by...
I think the prior video was in front of Judge Meyer, and it was fantastic, if I do say so myself.
By yourself. You don't have an attorney. You made that choice back in April when I last saw you, and I'm sure we had a full conversation about that, but I'm going to do it one more time. You have the right to be represented by an attorney. You know that. I've advised you of that. You have the right to be represented at no cost. You understand that? That's a question.
Yes, I understand.
And you understand you also have the right to represent yourself.
Yes.
And if you make the choice to represent yourself, which you have done to this point, you understand that I can't assist you in the presentation of your case. That you need to answer out loud. Record your answers.
Yes, I understand.
Okay. And you understand that I'm going to hold you to the same standards that I hold Mr. Sharp to as far as the presentation of the case. And that's even with me making the assumption that you have not gone to law school. I'm correct about that assumption?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I can't assist you in telling you to do things that you're supposed to do or telling you not to do things you're not supposed to do. I can't do those things. You understand that?
Yes.
Okay. And you understand if you were an attorney and you had been charged with the crime, I would be saying the same thing to you. I would be saying, don't represent yourself. In my opinion, that's always a mistake. You should always have somebody represent you. You understand all of that?
I do.
Have any questions for me about it?
Negative, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. And you understand I'm willing to appoint an attorney at this point, since we have not started the trial. I'm willing to appoint an attorney now. If you say, no, I've thought about it. I'd like to have an attorney.
This is my criminal trespassing case, correct?
That's the case. Yes.
I'll pass.
Okay.
Yep.
So meaning you wish to go forward representing yourself.
Correct.
Okay. I'll find that Mr. Milton, after now 3 discussions at least on this topic, continues to be consistent in his position that he wishes to represent himself. I believe there's been a full and discussion of this, and Mr. Milton fully understands the ramifications of representing himself and is making the choice to do so, does so voluntarily. Mr. Sharp, the state proceeding on one charge, criminal trespass.
In the first degree, yes, Your Honor.
Property alleged to be trespassed is what?
This is a 7-Eleven store on Moor, Your Honor.
Okay.
You need the street address?
No, that's fine. And your expected witnesses today are? Mr. Sharp.
Your Honor, that would be tomorrow. We're expecting
Tomorrow. Sorry.
Officer Evers and Jessica Heasley. City has Janae Sal on standby as a potential rebuttal witness.
Okay, so and Officer Evers' first name is?
Okay, so they have 2 witnesses tomorrow. I've got stuff. In fact, I've got a live hearing tomorrow. But that shouldn't take long. I'm going to try to squeeze it in.
Could have a moment. I don't want to misspell it or anything. That'd be embarrassing. Josie Evers, Your Honor. Josie.
Thank you. And Jessica Heasley
Yes, Your Honor.
and Janae Sal is a potential witness.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you're not intending to call Ms. Hoffman Gates?
No, Your Honor, and I'll stop there. No.
Okay. And Mr. Milton, do you have any witnesses that you expect to appear tomorrow for trial?
Officer Evers,
Okay. Anybody else?
I have not been able to confirm that anybody else will appear for me.
What? Where's Shaggy?
So
Okay.
the answer is no.
Okay. I mean, I do note that you had submitted a witness list early on,
Yeah, I
but
did.
no contact information for those folks. So you've not been able to get hold of any of them.
I was able to get a hold of them, but my original court date that I told them about was like 20 days ago or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps it was even last month. I recall I was arrested on June 4th. I had my witnesses set up to come and give me written testimony, and they were just waiting to hear from me, but I had none of their phone numbers, none of their address.
Oh, yeah. Shaggy was waiting with bated breath for you to give him the green light to come on down and testify for you. Uh-huh.
Addresses, and the only witnesses that I had worked at the location that I was trespassed from. So the only way that I could get there was by breaking the law further. Didn't seem to make a whole lot of
He's so law-abiding. He didn't want to, he didn't want to violate his bond conditions trying to get his witnesses for trial. You understand.
sense, so I'm relying on Officer Evers to testify the truth.
Okay. All right.
By the way, I do need to mention that this is, of course, Natalie D's fault. I knew nothing about it. I was in transit all day, and there it is, as soon as I get back.
So Officer Evers will be here.
Awesome.
And if I remember correctly, Judge Meyer had a discussion with you about your witness list. Is that correct?
We had a brief discussion, correct?
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And Mr. Sharp, any motions in limine from the city?
Yes, Your Honor. I guess first I'd just assert the city would like to reserve objection if any surprise witnesses do come out of the woodwork in response to Mr. Milton's request. I'll save the rationale for now.
Okay.
So you'd like to raise the issue of identity. This morning, Mr. Milton has been responding to the court's colloquy, including addressing him by name. At previous hearings, he's identified as some other entity.
I never said I was Peyton Milton.
Calling himself, I believe, something along the lines of the agent authorized to represent Peyton Milton.
Okay.
I would submit to the court that there's only one individual in this courtroom other than court staff, observer, and prosecution. One person sitting at the defense table. The case is City of Lacey versus Peyton Ansley John Milton, and he is responding to discussions with the court. That would mean he's either the defendant himself or an attorney. As the court just established through thorough colloquy, there is no attorney on this case. That would leave the only conclusion being that this is the defendant. Now, it would be a different issue discussing whether the individual in question committed the act, and that's a fact for the jury to find. The city would move to exclude any references by Mr. Milton as to him being some entity other than himself. Grounds for that primarily being that, well, first of all, there's a factual issue and a legal issue, but it's not necessarily relevant for the jury. It could potentially lead the jury astray on a rabbit hole that would interfere with the process unduly, and there's no proper place for those assertions within this trial.
Thank you.
I object.
Okay. All right. Hold on. Other motions?
City would inquire as to whether the court intends to issue a preliminary pro se instruction, given that Mr. Milton is representing himself. That's an unusual circumstance that the jury deserves some instruction about. I've researched. I don't see a model Washington instruction along those lines. However, there is a model instruction from the federal system. And I guess I'm starting with an inquiry if the court has that instruction. If not, I would be happy to draft one up using that federal model language. The issues here being the jury would need to understand that he has the right to defend himself and that he's chosen to exercise that right. Additionally, that he'll be speaking at times other than under oath, and that when he's speaking not under oath as a witness, that is not evidence.
Yes, I fully intend to instruct the jury as to that. If you want to print up the federal instruction, I'll look at that. I've not seen it before, but I typically do instruct the jury as to pro se defendants.
Okay, and when do I need to provide that to the court?
Before this afternoon.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else?
That's it from the city, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. On the issue of Mr. Milton's name, I do recall now, since you brought that issue up, I remember vaguely, since it's been now 3 months, going on 4 months since I last saw Mr. Milton, this conversation about name. I'm not going to prohibit Mr. Milton from identifying himself as he chooses to identify himself. I think the issue of whether he's the person that was at the scene and had previously been told he couldn't be there, that's an issue the city's going to have to prove and do it before the jury. What Mr. Milton likes to call himself or not, I don't think is an issue I'm greatly concerned about. I'll let you you can of course make objections. If you believe Mr. Milton is trying to hide behind that to say some alter ego was present, but he wasn't there, that issue I won't allow that before the jury. So you can make the objection if there seems to be that presentation.
Understood, John.
Okay. Mr. Milton, did you have any pretrial motions you wish to make?
I feel the need to say that I'm not Peyton Ansley John Milton all of a sudden, but thank you for defending my ability to be the agent authorized to represent the name that I was given. I don't believe I do.
Okay.
I feel the need for speed.
Okay, so I will make clear to the jury, if you make that statement to the jury, I'm going to say, because when you say that you're the agent for a person, that can lead a jury to believe you're the attorney or the representative of a person who's now not here, that other chair is absent. I'm going to say, no, this is the person who has been charged with the crime. You're referring to yourself as the agent for the person who was given the name you were given at birth. And with that understanding, we can go forward.
Yes.
Okay.
Please, let's.
All right.
Of course, yeah. Last thing I'm intending to do is to disrespect you, Your Honor, and to not be present, etc.
Okay. All right. I think we're...
Oh, that's rich. I just don't want you to feel like I'm disrespecting you, Your Honor.
we're
uh-huh.
We have all the issues we need to discuss prior to the selection of a jury. So I will, since you are representing yourself, the way this is going to work this afternoon when we come back for jury selection is the jury will be seated in the seats behind you.
Okay.
And I don't know how many jurors we have. It's usually somewhere between 18 and 20. And you'll have a seating chart. And we refer to them by numbers, 1 through whatever number. And you'll have information about each one of them. And I will instruct them on their role as jurors. I will ask some questions of them. I'll ask them to introduce themselves. And both you and Mr. Sharp will have spun your chairs around and be facing the jurors back there so you can see who's speaking.
Gotcha.
And then I will give each of you 15 minutes to...
I got you, Judge.
inquire or ask questions of the jury. And then when we finish the questions, I'll ask both of you to come forward And you're going to tell me whether you think there are any jurors who can be challenged for cause. That is, they've said something which leads you to believe they can't be fair. And I'll address any challenges for cause. I will also make notes if I perceive any. And then after that, each one of you gets 3 challenges. So you don't have to have a reason, and you can challenge any juror you want, and we just go back and forth until each of you have used your 3 challenges. And then at the conclusion of all those challenges, the lowest remaining 7 numbers will be our jury. So if 1 through 7 haven't been challenged, they will be the jurors. If one of them have been challenged, and we just keep moving up. We have 7 because we are a 2-day jury process now, so we hold on to 1 juror as an alternate, and that would be the.
This is interesting. I've tried, several juries in my life. The process for picking is always slightly different. This is very similar to things I've done, but different. But it is every time, even in Cook County, from judge to judge.
Highest remaining number of those selected, and that person will sit through the trial, and if all 6 of the other jurors are present when we go to deliberations, then the highest remaining number gets excused and doesn't participate in deliberations. So I run through that process. Do you have any questions for me about how that works?
I don't believe it's going to change anything whether I ask or don't. So I'll have to
and you don't have to ask any questions. You can if you wish.
Appreciate you. If I knew what to ask, I would.
That's one of those things I told you ahead of time. I can't tell you what to ask.
No worries. No worries.
Okay.
Appreciate you.
All right. So you're free. I'm pretty confident Mr. Sharp will ask some questions. You're free to, when I then turn to you and say, do you have any questions for the jury? You're free to say, no, I don't. And
so it's Mr. Sharp versus Mr. Not Very Sharp.
If you actually have questions for the jury, you can ask them. You'll do it from the table. And the questions are only meant to determine if the jury can be fair. That's the sole basis of the questions in what's called voir dire, is just to determine it, can they be fair jurors in a trial.
Gotcha.
Okay, so that will be our process for this afternoon. And once the jury is picked, I will give them some preliminary instructions, and then we'll excuse everybody and come back tomorrow for trial. And it's going to be important that you're here on time tomorrow because we're asking people to come in who are giving up days of work and things like that to be here. So I don't want to keep them waiting. So I want you here at 9 o'clock, ready to go to start the trial.
You got it. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I will be here on time.
Mr. Sharp, anything else from the city?
I have one exhibit to pre-mark. I brought a copy from Mr. Milton. I'll go ahead and walk that up to the clerk.
Okay.
Now, if that's okay.
Yep.
Just scan this form. The original copy for your reference.
And actually, may I see it, Mr. Sharp? Thank you. This is City of Lacey's exhibit number 1. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes, thank you. And Mr. Milton, and I'm going to refer to you as Mr. Milton. I understand what your position is on that.
Yeah.
Do you have any objection to the admission of this exhibit?
Other than the fact that I'm technically not supposed to receive this, so I'll be leaving it on the table here. Negative.
Okay. So
thank you for that pile of stupid. The prosecutor did exactly what he's supposed to do. Before you would provide you would provide a copy of an exhibit that you're introducing to opposing counsel first for the review, and also to the judge. Then you would move it into evidence. That's what's occurred.
without an objection from the defense, this will be admitted as City of Lacey exhibit number 1. So you don't have to go through the admission process. And Teresa will mark that exhibit. And you have no other exhibits, Mr. Sharp?
No, Your Honor.
And Mr. Milton, do you have any exhibits?
I'm wondering what I don't know what the exhibit was. It might be something that's self-authenticating. So, certified copies of certain things are self-authenticating, so you don't need any witness testimony to bring it in or something. I don't know what it is, but whatever. He introduced it now.
You wish to introduce this evidence?
Now, is this where I would be required to put in the statute, the RCW that would be in?
How many times has this judge told you he can't help you? And then he kicks it off with, is this when I do this?
In the case of my defense?
Well, okay, let's talk about that. That's an interesting issue. The law is what I instruct the jury on. You don't instruct the jury on what the law is.
It's my understanding if I don't verbatim the RCW, then all of a sudden I may have a contingency to worry about.
Okay. I don't have the charging document in front of me. I'm assuming it's actually a violation of Lacey Municipal Code that you're being charged with, or is it's
charged under the Lacey Municipal Code, Your Honor.
Oh, that's good to know.
Okay. And
it's good to know what I've been charged with. Yeah, you were also arraigned, at which point the charging document was read to you. You also got a copy of it. So let's not act like they're sneak attacking you with it here on the day of jury trial.
You know the statute number.
Yeah, let's do this. I know I've told Mr. Milton we can't assist him in the presentation of his case, but to avoid any appellate issues, if you can print up the Lacey Municipal Code, or do you already have it printed up?
Printer with me, Your Honor. I wonder if the clerk could do it.
Yeah. If you can email it to Teresa, we can get it printed up.
Madam Clerk, is it okay if I send you a?
And here's where, and they all do it. I'm not knocking this judge. They all say, "Oh, I'm not going to treat you like I'm going to hold you to the standard of an attorney." None of this would be happening if he had a defense attorney there. If the defense attorney had said, "Well, I need to see a copy of the statute," everyone would laugh him out of the courtroom. Well, then look it up and do your job.
Link to it. It's online. It's online, so I'll send you a link so you can print it directly from the online source.
So we're going to print up the Lacey Municipal Code provision that the city is proceeding under so you can look at it. And then the elements of that code section are what Mr. Sharp has to prove to the jury in order for you to be convicted. So to the extent that you want to talk about the law, that's totally appropriate in argument. It's not appropriate by way of testimony. Okay. So, and this is going to be something, and Mr. Sharp alluded to this, this is going to be something where you're going to have to understand there's this fine line. When if you choose to testify, and you don't have to testify, but if you choose to testify, you're going to come up here like any of the city witnesses, and I'll swear you in, and you'll sit there, and the jury who will be seated over there will hear your testimony, and your testimony will be about the facts of the events of March 31st. They won't be about the law. They'll be about the facts. You're not making an argument. You're saying, I was here, I wasn't here, whatever your position is on that. At the close of all the evidence, I give each of you, both Mr. Sharp and you, a chance to argue to the jury about why the facts. He's going to argue, prove that you engaged in a trespass in violation of City's Exhibit 1, and you can argue to the jury why you believe you weren't in violation of that order. But it will be based on all the facts that come in testimony. So outside of the time you're sitting in the witness chair aren't going to be facts that the jury can consider. So if you neglect to say something when you're testifying and then you add it into an argument and Mr. Sharp objects and say that fact didn't come in, I would sustain that objection because the only facts that come in that the jury can consider are those that either come from you or other witnesses when sitting here as a witness under oath. Okay? So, it's a fine line and it's hard. That's one of the reasons why it's tough to represent yourself. I will also let you know that if you choose to testify, you're not going to have to ask yourself questions. That's, kind of a silly process. You can just tell the jury what you believe the facts of the case are.
Cool.
But you can't argue to the jury at that time.
No
all
worries.
you can tell them are what the facts are. You can't say, and you should find me innocent because.
Yes, here we are giving instruction to a pro se. They all do it. Again, I'm not knocking the judge. They all say I'm holding you to the standard, but then they do stuff like this throughout because otherwise they don't know what the hell they're doing. And then even after they tell them, they still don't know what the hell they're doing.
This, and this.
I got it dialed down to 3 points.
Okay. All right. And you have that?
Well, I think it takes me to several different ones.
Oh,
Hey, Lyra, I remember you.
yes.
I know you.
Your Honor, maybe it'd be helpful, and in the spirit of fairness, I prepared already the city's proposed jury instructions, and that may be useful for Mr. Milton to have to review. That I think would satisfy this question as to what the instruction as to the law is going to be. The court be willing to accept that, and I'll
Sure.
start with him now.
Yeah,
I had planned to do that later in the process, but
that's fine.
okay, so there are two sets of instructions here for Mr. Milton who hasn't done this. One is cited, the other is uncited. What I mean by cited is that they're based off of.
Hey, why don't you just present Mr. Milton a one-sided version? He doesn't need the unsided, unless you.
Mr. John. All of the instructions are derived from the Washington pattern jury instructions.
And may I see it so I can
Of
refer
course.
Mr. Milton where to look so we can just cut right to the chase on this?
Red
Thank you.
sided.
Yes. Good. Thank you.
Okay, theoretically, both sides bring their own set of jury instructions, and then you have a jury instruction conference, and you fight over which ones to include. We know Big Dummy's not going to bring his, so it's just whatever the prosecutor brings. But they're standard form instructions. I'm sure he didn't take any cheap shots.
Distinction in these? Oh, red. I get it. I have red-green color blindness, Mr. Sharp. See?
So about 2/3 of the way back, labeled as instruction 60.16.
Yep. Okay, so Mr. Milton, if you'll open that packet, and as Mr. Sharp says, go about 2/3 of the way back. There's, if you'll open it up, so
What's the would you just tell me what is to be understood?
okay. So is reading an issue? Let's not
Let's
to
say
embarrass
yes to make things simpler, Your Honor.
you. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Let's say yes, because it is.
it essentially reflects the language of the Lacey Municipal Code and the elements that the city needs to prove. And what the city needs to prove beyond a reasonable doubt are that on the 31st of March, you knowingly entered or remained in a building, that you knew that the entry or remaining was unlawful, and that this occurred in the city of Lacey. Those are the three things that the city has to prove.
Okay.
You knowingly entered or remained, you knew you shouldn't be there, and this occurred in Lacey. So
Gotcha.
that's the law that's going to be before the jury.
Okay.
Okay?
Beautiful. Thank you, sir.
Okay, and we have it in the documents if you wish to refer later to it, but that's essentially what it says. So just to be clear, I will also read to the actual language of the Lacey Municipal Code. So what it says Mr. Milton, is a person is guilty of criminal trespass in the first degree if he knowingly enters or remains unlawfully in a building or on real property adjacent thereto, or upon real property which is fenced or otherwise enclosed in a manner designed to exclude intruders. So it has not only the entering into a building, but or on real property adjacent to a building or real property which is fenced or otherwise enclosed. So that's the Lacey Municipal Code.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
You will, I think we've resolved all the issues. Do you have any questions for me?
Negative, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Sharp, anything else?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. I'll see both of you at 2 o'clock and be here. Now you know where we are. So be here at 2 o'clock and we will proceed with our selection of the jury, and then we'll gather again tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for the trial.
Your Honor, quick question on the timing there for Mr. Milton's benefit mainly. The jury selection process starts at 2. Is there a time we should be here to receive any preliminary documents if there's still a questionnaire? I don't know if that's the...
Yeah, you may want to get here a few minutes early, say 1:50, just to receive.
Oh, 1:50? I thought it was 9 a.m.
No. This afternoon, you're coming back this afternoon.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Okay,
That's
because
good to know.
we're going to select the jury.
Big Dummy's ready for trial. He doesn't realize he has jury instruction in a couple hours. He was gonna skip that part, which under normal circumstances should result in a loss right there.
Jury this afternoon.
Gotcha.
And then we're going to start the trial tomorrow morning. So you need to be in that chair no later than 2 o'clock. But if you come earlier, you'll get copies of the juror questionnaire, which you can read if you wish.
Gotcha.
Okay. So,
but of course, he can't read. So
All right.
we'll see you at 2 this afternoon,
Yes,
right
sir.
here. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Your Honor.
Welcome. Each of the parties, Mr. Sharp on behalf of the City of Lacey and Mr. Milton on behalf of himself, will have a chance to ask some questions, and then we'll select our jury for the case today. So that's the process that we're going to go through.
So now we're at 2 o'clock. We've got the veneer. That's what it's called. The group that you choose the jury from is the veneer. They've got them. It's this weird room. They talk about it. This is some COVID adaptation. They're not in a regular courtroom. He actually mentions it later. So they have to pick 7 jurors out of this group, and this is the process.
My guess is it will take, or give or take, a few minutes on either side. I'm guessing. Folks, actually, before we do that, Mr. Sharp and Mr. Milton, if you'd swing your chairs around to the other side of the table. Just swing your chairs around to the other side of the table. Officer Evers said it correct.
This is awkward, but it works.
Folks, if all the jurors would please rise and raise your right hands. Do each of you solemnly swear to truthfully answer any questions asked of you by the judge, Mr. Sharp and Mr. Milton, in the jury selection process today? You may be seated. Begin with our standard instructions. I'm going to get right to an obvious point, which is Mr. Milton is sitting here by himself. Typically, there would be counsel with him, and I'm going to address that issue now. First of all, I want to address the issue of Mr. Milton. This is Peyton Milton, and Mr. Milton, that's what I refer to him as. He prefers to refer to himself as the agent for Mr. Peyton Milton. So I don't want there to be any confusion. We're talking about one and the same, but I refer to him as Mr. Milton, and he may refer to himself as the agent for Mr. Milton, and I told him prior to trial that's fine. He can do that. So I wanted to clear that up. And also let you know that Mr. Milton is representing himself, and he and I have had chance to have a good conversation. It was a full conversation. It was a thoughtful conversation, and Mr. Milton is exercising his right to proceed without counsel.
Thoughtful is pushing it, Judge.
There is a formal instruction on that, and I'm going to read it now just so we make sure, I make sure I cover all the bases in this regard and clarify for you what that would mean in the context of your serving as a juror in this case. Mr. Milton has decided to represent himself in this trial and not to use the services of an attorney. He, in fact, is eligible for court-appointed counsel, and the court said I would be happy to appoint counsel. Mr. Milton has made the choice not to accept that offer. He has a constitutional right to represent himself. His decision to represent himself has no bearing on whether he is guilty or not guilty, and it must not affect your consideration of the case. Because he has decided to act as his own attorney, you will hear him speak at various times during the trial. He may make an opening statement, he may make a closing argument, and he may ask questions of witnesses, make objections, and argue legal issues to the court. It is important that you understand that when Mr. Milton speaks in these parts of the trial, he is acting as his attorney. And his words at those particular moments are not evidence. The only evidence in this case comes from witnesses who testify under oath on the witness stand, which is right here, and from any exhibits that are admitted into evidence. Mr. Milton will have the opportunity, if he chooses, to testify as a witness, or he also has no obligation to testify. But any facts you are to consider from Mr. Milton would come should he choose to testify under oath from up here. This is a criminal case brought by the City of Lacey as plaintiff. The city is represented today by Mr. Matt Sharp. And as I've discussed, Mr. Milton is representing himself. Mr. Milton is charged with the crime of criminal trespass, first degree. Specifically, this charge alleges that in the City of Lacey on the 31st of March of this year, Mr. Milton was present on the property of the 7-Eleven store on Marvin Road, and he had previously received a trespass order indicating he should not be present on that property. Keep in mind that a charge is only an accusation. The filing of a charge is not evidence that the charge is true. Your decisions as jurors must be made solely upon the evidence presented during these proceedings. To the charge of criminal trespass first degree, Mr. Milton has entered a plea of not guilty. The plea of not guilty means that you, the jury, must decide whether the city has proved each element of the crime. The city has the burden of proving every element beyond a reasonable doubt. Mr. Milton has no burden of proving that a reasonable doubt exists. He has no duty to call witnesses, to produce evidence, or to testify. He is presumed to be innocent. The presumption of innocence continues throughout the entire trial. The presumption means that you must find him not guilty unless you can conclude at the end of your deliberations that the evidence has established the defendant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. A reasonable doubt is one for which a reason exists. It may arise from the evidence or lack of evidence. A reasonable doubt is a doubt that would exist in the mind of a reasonable person after fully, fairly, and carefully considering all of the evidence or lack of evidence. If after such consideration you have an abiding belief in the truth of the charge, then you are satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, before I ask all of you some questions, I'm going to ask each of you to take a moment, introduce yourselves to us and to each other. And what I'm going to ask that you do is when I call your number, you stand and tell us how long you've lived in the area, what you do for any employment you may have, and what your primary interests are outside of any employment you may have. And before I do this, I'm going to point out the obvious, and that is you all have a number attached to you. In case you're curious, your name was randomly drawn and assigned that number. And the reason I'm pointing this out is you do not need to give us your name for purposes of serving as a juror today. You don't have to give us your name. You may maintain your anonymity if you wish. The reason we do this is we've had requests from jurors in trials past that wish to do so. So when you stand, you can give us your name if you want to, or you can just be juror number, whatever your number is. And we'll start with juror number 1.
Christian originally from San Diego. I've been here 20 years now.
And employment?
Electrician.
Okay. And interest outside of employment?
Kind of boring. About it.
All right. Thank you very much.
I cut
Turn
a
number
fair
2.
amount of this just because the mic doesn't pick them up.
Self-employed woodworker. And I was born here. My interest in my work and what I do. So I like reading and road trips, that kind of thing.
All right. Thank you very much. Juror number 3. All right. Thank you very much. Juror number 4.
My name is Terry, and I've lived in this area about 25 years, moving here from Canada. And I am a real estate broker working for Windermere office, and I'm an elected official serving on the Yale City Council.
Thank you very much. Juror number 5.
My name is Linda. I've lived here about 28 years. My husband and I moved to the area. My husband was in the Army, and we were in the Army for 27 years. I'm retired from working for the school district in a kindergarten room. Currently, my husband and I are currently serving as full-time missionaries for our church, working with the young missionaries with medical issues.
All right. Thank you. Juror number 6.
My name's Joe, originally from Florida. Been here for about 19 years. Currently, I work at Western State as a maintenance mechanic. Outside of here, I just like to work on music independently.
All right. Thank you very much. Juror number 7.
My name is Travis. I've been in the area for 14 years, transportation manager. Outside of work, some brand new grandbabies, so doing everything I can to chase them around as much as I can.
All right. Thank you very much. Juror number 8.
David, originally from San Francisco, but have been here for the last 30 years. Recently retired. Used to commute up to Seattle. The last 25 years installing corporate security systems like cameras, badge readers, stuff like that. So that's what I do.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Juror number 9.
My name is Luke. I've been born and raised here for as long as I can remember. And I work as a forklift operator at a warehouse area.
Okay. And outside of work, you like to?
Relax.
Okay. Fair enough. Juror number 10.
My name is Brandon. I've lived here almost my whole life in Thurston County for 16 years. I am transportation and engineering director for government here in Thurston County. And hobbies outside of work or woodworking, being outside.
Thank you very much. Juror number 11.
Juror number 11. I've lived here all my life in Thurston County in the last 30 years. I'm an airline pilot, and I dive, and I fly a sailplane.
Thank you very much. Juror number 12.
I am a management analyst with Department of Labor and Industry. I write wax school there. Interests, we eat, breathe, and soccer. Both my kids play competitive. I serve on the board. So.
Thank you. Juror number 13. Thank you. And juror number 14.
Chris, been here about 10 years, came from Minnesota for that. Construction project manager for the Fish and Wildlife. I like mountain biking.
Thank you. Juror number 15.
Jerry, lived in the area 38 years. My out time is chasing after my 17-year-old.
Good luck. Juror number 16.
Yeah, number 16. Born and raised here, moved away for work and school and everything while I've been back for about 2 years now. I work as a software developer and interests include woodworking, 3D printing, honestly just about anything. If you name a hobby, I've probably looked into it.
All right, thank you. Juror number 17. And juror number 19. Good, do we have any? There we go.
I was born and raised here until I graduated from Lincoln High School. I came back here after college to go to law school at the University of Washington, and then I pursued a career in international law, from which I retired just last year.
Yeah, no one cares.
I've actually traveled to 110 countries. Besides travel, my current hobbies are swimming, reading, and hiking.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
right.
there is one more thing that
Yes.
I probably should mention. I have, this is very early in my legal career, I provided legal advice to prisoners at McNeil Island, San Quentin, and Alcatraz.
Yeah, thank you very much. And you're right, that would have come up.
I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
Conversation, but I appreciate you sharing that. All right, and before I start asking some questions, I'm going to point out another obvious thing, and which is we're sitting in what is just basically reformulated office space, and we're still separating people. We call this our COVID courtroom. Our normal courtrooms at the courthouse have people sitting right next to one another. They're much smaller than this, and even though the COVID emergency, the pandemic emergency, has been lifted, we are still sensitive to the fact that some folks prefer having a little bit more space. So we continue to use this courtroom for that purpose. Now, it's obviously not ideal because it has posts in the middle of it. Most of you are so far away from me that even with my glasses on, it can barely make you out. So my apologies. Once the jury is selected, they'll be seated over here, and it's going to be a little bit easier. But if you're curious why we're all sitting in what used to be somebody else's cubicle, that's why. We're trying to just maintain a healthy environment for folks who are asked to come serve as.
Hello, look who came to see us.
Can you hear my 14-year-old squealing like a pterodactyl in the background?
I can't. Yeah. It's all good.
Oh, well, he is being obnoxious because, it's what boys do, I think. Well, there he is again.
You want obnoxious. We've got a sovereign citizen going. They're doing jury selection for a sovereign citizen accused of a municipal violation in Washington.
Well, that sounds right up my alley. Just what I've been waiting for. What I've been missing and didn't realize.
But now that I have you on, I'll take the opportunity because everybody was wondering where I was. And I'm still not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you, but I will tell you this. I did see Ms. Davis. When was that? Last Thursday?
Yeah, it must have been Thursday.
I rolled by 3B. And you know who wasn't there? Judge Middleton.
I sent him a text. He was disappointed that he missed you.
I did have a nice chat with Judge Stutzman.
Yeah, but weren't you supposed to come back through, today?
Well,
Break my heart, man.
Stuff. There was stuff.
All the things.
And I met Paul Gibson, too.
Really good reason. Yeah.
And you can back me on this. He was rolling into court. I was going out. Like, people had stuff to do or whatever. You gave me like a little tour, and I was walking out. I was there for like 10 minutes. I'm walking out, and,
You
and
were
Paul
there longer
Gibson
than 10
sees
minutes,
me,
don't lie.
and he looks like he saw a ghost. He's just like, I don't know why.
I instantly had like regrets for a second. Like, how is this gonna go? Is he gonna be mad that I didn't like give him a heads up? Like, I mean, you're just like, hey, what's up? Then I walk in, I'm like, hey, so I have a friend here, and then you walked in. It was so funny. I mean, I could not introduce you because he literally is the first person who ever brought up your existence to me. So
he was fun, and he's a DePaul guy.
Yeah, I mean,
Go Blue Demons.
DePaul.
We went to the same law school.
You guys were.
So it's all good. Although this notion of speaking to the judges conference in Michigan, I don't know. I'd need security for that one.
Lost my marbles when he said that. I was like, what?
I think most of them like me, but not all of them.
I was going with it. Sounds like his friends really enjoy you, so they're probably watching this right now.
All right.
Friend.
We got to get back here to the sovereign citizen.
Wait,
jury.
One more thing.
Yeah?
You had Frank be your personal umbrella handler, and I told them that you said such nice things about security, and it just cracks me up because they are literally like the nicest people. I mean, but they would also probably shoot somebody for me.
But what I told you,
or tase them at least.
When I first walked in, I had a suit on, so I'm looking like an attorney because I'd come from an appearance. So I come rolling into the courtroom. They don't know me, but like guy in suit, we don't know. Okay, could not have been nicer. I go through security in courthouses all over the place. They were so sweet. They just you got a good group over there in Centerville, Michigan.
It was the worst torrential downpour when you were trying to leave.
Yeah.
So rainy. I offered you my umbrella, by the way.
Dude, I left town. Dude, this is they're out in the country here in Centerville. Okay, whatever. I go to my GPS where I'm going, and I'm leaving town, and I go on to something called Covered Bridge Road. Oh, this isn't made up. There's a freaking covered bridge, and this thing's a one-laner, and it's made out of wood.
Yep.
And I'm in this car going, I don't know if that thing's gonna hold. And that's the route GPS gave me. I wasn't like going on the scenic route. This is what I'm dealing with.
Yeah, at least you weren't driving too large of a vehicle, because every year, without fail, somebody thinks that they're going to fit and just rails into that. And we had a $100,000 horse trailer outfit that was coming down to the fair for the rodeo last year and just power slammed into it and wrecked it. And then they got a ticket because they found them at the fair, and I'm like,
well, yeah,
I think you're the ones that wrecked that. So yeah, my brother-in-law works for the road commission, and it's every time somebody hits the cover bridge, I call him, and he's like,
we got to do it again.
Good times.
All right. Well, wait, we're in this. We're in Voir here. Okay. And the defendant, the pro se sovereign citizen defendant, who I crap you negative, had Shaggy on his witness list. I'm not making this up. I did a prior video.
Like the rapper?
I don't know. Just Shaggy. That's who he had on his witness list. He addresses the jury.
Okay.
It's very brief, but it's top notch.
Well, I'm excited. Okay. I'm in.
Jurors for us. All right. As indicated, I'm going to ask some questions. And then if you would answer yes to any of these questions, please just raise your hand and keep your hand raised until I call your number. Now, that's going to be problematic for me because I can't see your number, so I may ask you to tell me your number. And then when we ascertain your number, you can put your hand down. And then that'll give us a chance to...
let me catch up on the case. It's a trespassing. It's a criminal trespass at a 7-Eleven.
Decide whether your response may
That's it. That's all you need to
engender
know.
further
You
questions.
want a Slurpee, man.
Exactly.
And understand these questions are not meant to embarrass you. If there's any answer you might give that you're reluctant to give in front of a group of people you've just met for the first time, let us know. We'll see if we can skip over the question or if there's information that's important for us to get. If there might not be another way to do that without putting you on the spot. Does any juror know the prosecutor for the city of Lacey, Mr. Sharp? Are there
Not
any
very popular
jurors
as
who
I
are
thought.
now or previously have been
I'm actually freaked out by this sort of thing. I've done this for years, and I've had these sorts of questions. Does anybody know a counsel at either table? You know, this typical jury question stuff. And not that many people know, but now I'm like, is someone going to say it if I get a jury
Yes.
in Cook County? Is
It's
someone
gonna
gonna be like,
happen.
oh yeah,
Judge Stutzman laughs about, like, if even if it's not my trial, like the hands that shoot up. Like, does anybody know Debbie Davis? Like, ding, 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 ding. And then he giggles about it, and got to find out how they know.
Ay.
employed by the city of Lacey? Okay, and is that 16? Juror 16, is that right? Okay, so juror 16, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Good for you.
And juror 16, is that current or you used to be?
No, I was a lifeguard for the department in high school.
Okay.
But then I was shit canned, so does it count?
Anyone else? All right, juror 16, I'm going to ask you another question then. Since at one point in your life you were an employee of the city of Lacey, and the city of Lacey is a party to this trial today as the plaintiff, is there anything about your prior employment that would keep you from being able to fairly and objectively weigh the testimony in this case?
No.
Okay, thank you. Are there any jurors who are now or previously have been employed by the 7-Eleven Corporation? Are there any jurors who, in any capacity, your personal or professional, have felt obligated to call law enforcement to report a situation of a trespass?
That's an interesting voir dire question, very specific to the case.
Are there any jurors who themselves have ever been arrested, charged, or convicted of a property crime such as trespass?
Little
Thank you.
Mikey's doing so good.
I know. I wanted to get.
As
get
I
my-
indicated earlier, we had a little discussion about
So
Mr.
disappointed
Milton
you didn't come to
representing
the house.
himself. Are there any jurors who are going to have a difficult time with Mr. Milton representing himself to the extent that you would hold that against him in deciding this case?
They haven't seen him in action yet, so I feel like that's a
Thank you.
really premature question.
We will conduct our trial proceedings tomorrow, starting at 9 o'clock in the morning. I have great confidence that this will be no more than a one-day trial. Are there any jurors for whom coming back tomorrow for trial proceedings would be more than ordinarily inconvenient?
They don't say
Okay,
it,
juror
Josh,
number
they say
13, is
they
that right?
follow Judge Middleton's
Okay, anybody
court,
else?
Which is basically law talking.
Okay, juror number 13, tell me about that.
My boyfriend stays to the red spot, so my for a month to the court. So I have Oxigo, who's been a major contender.
I couldn't hear what she said. Something
Well,
about
if
her
he plays
boyfriend.
for the Red Sox, I should probably make it.
It wasn't me.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, the game time tomorrow will be 6:40.
Dang. Judge is well versed.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
The best
Sure.
is the defendant.
Morning, everybody. I really like this icebreaker format. That's a new one to me. Matt Sharp, I'm a prosecutor for the city of Lacey. I enjoy just
What?
kind of tinkering around in the garage, whether that's woodworking or fixing something that I
What?
broke or fixing
What's he
something
doing?
somebody else broke.
That's the prosecutor.
I noticed in the
Is that-
questionnaires that a few of you have done jury service before. Could I get a show of hands who's done jury service before? Now, out of those, keep your hand up if it's been a criminal case. We've been on a criminal jury. Okay, if you wouldn't mind keeping it up for a second. Juror A, what was the charge? Yeah, when you were a juror.
What was the charge?
Mhm.
I'm not sure if it's criminal. It was some guy
He didn't pay
hitting
attention very well when he
him
was
with a
juror.
vehicle.
Oh, I see. Like a car accident?
Yeah.
Okay. So who else did we have? Juror 11?
It was a felony eluding.
Eluding? Okay. Juror 3?
Mhm.
Was someone who was breaking a restraining order and being a property that he was not supposed to be at.
Okay. And I thought I saw another hand. Was it Juror 6? Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, it was a criminal.
It was a criminal? Okay. Well, thank you all for your service before and for being here again. You've heard the charge in this case already. It's trespass in the first degree, and I think we could all agree that's not exactly the crime of the
Trespass is in
century.
different degrees.
But I would submit to you that it's important for all of us to be here, and I thank you for your time. There are a couple of reasons for that. I'd like to recognize that Mr. Milton is entitled to his day in court, and for that to happen, we all need to be here. So thank you for performing your duty so that important function can happen. I'd like to suggest there's another important reason too. And real quick before we get into it, this is the one and really only interactive part of the trial. After this, it's all passive. We'll be talking sort of at you or for you, but we won't get to hear back much. So I just encourage you to not be shy now and feel free to speak up and share.
Oh, good
I'd like to
Lord.
start by asking, and this will, I think, illustrate the importance of this. Does anybody here own or rent their home, whether that's a house
Well,
or an apartment or a vehicle even, or a tent? How many people own or rent?
a
or
tent.
basically just have a space of your own. Okay. So, Juror 3, I'll pick on you just for a second.
Across all socioeconomic statuses.
Who gets to come into your home?
Those who are invited.
Those that are invited. If after we wrap up today, when you get home, all the rest of us show up and just help ourselves in, is that cool?
No, jeez.
No?
You're invited.
Okay.
What if y'all
What
get
about
to know
if,
each other, really like each
Oh,
other?
he's tainting the whole veneer. I love it.
This is really ridiculous.
Somebody was invited and they were already in, and then you didn't want them around anymore.
You have a Cuban wife?
What options do you have for that?
I do.
Learn something new every day.
Communication is the best
I
way.
do.
Ask them
She's imaginary.
to leave.
Ask them to leave. Okay.
Oh, very good.
I won't pick on you too much. Move on. Juror
Not
4.
like a blow up doll plastic thing.
So, do you agree with that option? That if you've got
Sure,
a guest that you've already
not
invited
judging.
in, but maybe you don't want them around anymore, you talk with them about leaving? How about if they don't want to leave?
Make sure
This
they
is really
understand that you
interesting.
really want them to leave, and I guess if they didn't, you would go for help to remove that person.
Why is it that you have the power to ask them to leave?
Because it's my property.
It's your property. Okay. And how about we shift it just a little bit? Does anybody own or manage a business with a like a physical location that accepts customers, like a brick and mortar type place? Nobody. Okay. Does anybody work as an employee, not a manager or owner, in a place like that? Okay, Juror 4, Juror 16.
Maybe
So I'm thinking like a
little
shop
less
or a
in the
restaurant or a theater, something like. Has anybody ever worked retail? How many people have worked retail before? Okay. See a few hands there. Has anybody worked in a movie theater? Okay, lucky you. I've done that. I'm going to ask you to imagine for a second. Let's
Don't say
imagine
popcorn?
that you're working in a movie theater. And I'm talking about movie theater because it's a little different than a house, right? Like a movie theater, you don't get invited to go to the movie theater, do you? If you're 16, do you have to get an invitation to go to a movie?
No.
Why not?
It's open to the public.
Okay.
Want people to come in, the ticket.
Okay. If everybody could just imagine you're working in a movie theater, you poor thing, and somebody comes out during a big popular
Air
movie
conditioned?
and they say, hey, somebody's in there and they're just shouting out spoilers. And it's ruining the movie for me.
Mike.
Juror 14.
Yes.
If you were that employee,
Movie spoiler.
what can you do there?
Go in there and it's like, oh, she's gonna die. Yep, told you.
Okay. Anybody want to guess what kind of policies there might be for a thing like that? How about,
kind of like,
can you ask them to stop?
7-Eleven's a movie theater. It's not really the same. I would
Stop ruining the movie for everybody. Okay, Juror 5. What if you've asked the person to stop shouting during the movie and you went back to the concession stand and you're working on some stuff and more folks are coming out of the theater and they're saying, it's still happening. He's shouting all the spoilers and giving away all the surprises. What happens next, do you think?
I thought a lot about these voir dire questions, didn't I?
Doesn't quite seem like a big enough deal to call the police, or something like that. I don't know if theater has security, at a theater, but if they did, I suppose you can turn it over to security people. Going to ask them to escort.
Oh, if I was
Okay,
representing
so
the
have
defendant, I'd be
security ask
aggressive.
them to leave?
They can ask questions to try to figure out if they can give a fair and impartial verdict based upon these facts. So, but I would object, if nothing else, to disrupt their flow.
Okay. Isn't the movie theater kind of similar to where you live? It's not a place where people live necessarily, but
Now I'd be losing my mind.
Necessarily, no, they don't live at all at movie theaters.
Now we're just full on argument and a tenuous argument at that. But he's pro se, doesn't know what to do.
isn't it when guests are invited in, if they're no longer wanted? What do you guys think? Does a business have the right to ask somebody to leave? Can I get a show of hands? Does anybody agree with that? Does everybody agree with that? Juror 19? I don't see your hand.
Yeah, because I don't think that your home and a theater for which is open to the public and for which you pay for admission are good.
Okay. So the person that's in the theater and
if everyone's wondering why is he asking these questions for things like that, he doesn't want juror 19 right there. That's what he's trying to do. But even more to the point, he's laying the foundation for his argument before the trial starts. No, obviously.
Been shouting out the spoilers, and they were asked to keep it down, and they kept doing it, and they were asked to leave. Would that be wrong in your mind to ask them to leave?
No.
Okay, well, how come?
Because again, it's a public place. Public places have rules that govern content.
Oh, good Lord.
Okay.
So this is not anything
does
about
anybody
how you apply the
disagree?
law or the facts.
Yes, ma'am.
You're not giving her any law to apply to it.
Leaving of that person by offering.
Okay.
I bet nobody knew
Okay.
it was going to happen at the end.
Does anybody here disagree with that take
What,
on
the
it?
ship sinks?
Any hands for that? Okay. I don't have a whole lot more questions for you here. I kind of just have a catch-all that I'd like to ask. Is there anybody here that would have trouble at the end of this trial? You're gonna hear evidence from the parties. You're gonna hear arguments, and you'll be given instructions from the judge. The judge is going to tell you what the law is. Now, sometimes we like to think we know what the law is. We come in with ideas because we're trying to navigate within the law in our lives,
Just
right?
ask them all.
Is there anybody that's going to have a hard time accepting the judge's instructions over what you came into this room with? In other words, if the judge gives you an instruction about the law that's different than what you thought before? Is anybody have trouble with that? Okay. And then really a blanket here. Is there any reason that hasn't come up in the conversation, either with me or the judge yet, any reason you don't think you could be fair as a juror in this case? And that means fair toward Mr. Milton or fair toward the city? Seeing no hands?
I'm really thinking
Ma'am?
about several
Number
of the
three?
Slurpees and all the flavors. What flavors did they have when they were there?
Being at
Was it
the
clean?
trial
Was the
that
floor
I
sticky
was
there?
sat in,
So many questions.
couple of
So
years.
distracting.
I feel like it might be hard for me to be impartial based on the circumstances of that, how it ended up.
Yeah.
Is that juror 19? Because I think that one's a loon.
The consensus of the group, the consensus of the jury was that we felt that the gentleman was guilty of what he was charged with, but there wasn't enough evidence to meet the criteria of what the judge gave.
Don't worry.
Okay.
Don't worry. The defendant clears all the
caused
stuff
me a lot
when
of
he gets his
anxiety
opportunity.
because I felt that after it was all over and we got to know more about the case and the person, we felt like we'd made a wrong decision.
Well, how would that affect your judgment in this case?
I don't know if it would. I guess that's why I'm kind of struggling.
Well, it kind of sounds like you did your job. It sounds like you waited until all the evidence came in and then made a decision based on that evidence. Did the jury acquit in that case? You acquitted. And it sounds like you took your job pretty seriously. Is that fair?
We did.
Do you think you could do that in this case too?
No.
Yes.
Could you wait until all the evidence comes in before you make a decision?
Oh, yes.
Okay. And could you make a decision based only on the evidence?
Yes.
Okay. Could I get a show of hands? Is there anybody that's going to have trouble with that? Waiting until all the evidence comes in first before making a decision? And then making a decision based only on that evidence? Yes, sir.
The more and more I think about it, the more unsettled I get.
The more I don't want to be in this stupid trial.
Right.
Mr. Milton is not adequately represented, and therefore, through the course
He ain't
of
bright
this
enough to represent
trial,
himself. I can't do this.
won't take advantage
This guy's just trying to get kicked.
of
Yeah.
the best opportunity.
No,
And by the
nobody's
way,
that stupid.
I believe everything
To
that the
defend
police
himself.
officers say, no matter what, because they're police officers.
Going at it alone, I'm thinking,
Yeah.
Oh, and there's a retired
that's
cop.
what's bugging me.
I hear you,
Mr.
sir.
Mr. Sharp, I'll address that.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, so folks, as I said at the beginning, because that's a natural concern that's being expressed, and we wanted to make clear that somebody in Mr. Milton's position has the constitutional right to represent themselves. Before they do that, however, it's my obligation as the judge to have a good conversation with Mr. Milton about that, what I think the advantages are and what the disadvantages are of that, doing that. And Mr. Milton and I have actually had 2 conversations about that. And he's asked very thoughtful questions, and we've gone over it. And my conclusion at the end of our 2 conversations is that he's making this request, understanding exactly what the ramifications are, and that he is doing so voluntarily. He understands that I would appoint counsel to represent him. I told him that again today, at the start of the trial, that even though it's late in this process, I would be more than willing to appoint counsel to represent him. And he says, no, he would like to proceed representing himself. And we've had a good conversation about that. So to the extent that that would put you at ease, fine, but I understand the qualms you feel, because that's why I felt compelled to let all of you know
Not exempt.
that, because I would feel the exact same thing if I were sitting where you were.
They get kicked pretty easily.
All right.
I try to keep them.
Thank you. Any other questions, Ms. Sharp? If I could just briefly follow up on that. So Juror 15, thank you for sharing that. This is a very serious thing. And after what the judge just had to say, I wonder, do you still feel the same way? Would you be unable to be unbiased in this case because of those feelings?
Say it.
I appreciate the honesty, sir. Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Milton, do you have any questions for the jurors?
Do I have any questions for you all?
We're happy you did too.
I suppose I'd like to take this opportunity to build rapport, but let's not waste each other's time, right?
Oh, here we go.
Do I have any questions for you all?
Because none of you are going to hang out with me after this.
No, am I allowed to only ask questions?
Yeah, right now it's just questions of the jurors.
Fantastic. No, I'll pass, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Milton.
Love me or hate me. No need to build rapport.
All right, Mr. Milton and Mr. Sharp, if you both approach.
That was some
Okay.
fun right there.
Yeah, I've just been thinking about this and everything, and I want to make sure I don't personally don't think this would be an issue for me. But my brother back in quite home, he was captain of the Lazy Fleet for a Lazy Optic here. So I went to some of the meetings, I met the office and everything. I don't think it's going to be an issue for me, but I wanted everyone to know that if they.
Okay. Thank you very much for pointing that out. Appreciate it. And Mr. Sharp, when you're ready, you can come on up. And Mr. Milton, come on. Right over here.
This is interesting,
folks,
the way that they do it. Number one,
this will be fairly straightforward. Our jury will be comprised of jurors 1 through 7, juror number 7 being our all.
Okay, so this is the standard thing when we're thumping our chests at each other. We always say, we'll just take the first 12 in the box. That's what they did. They took jurors 1 through 7. There were no. The process is, I guess you have 3 challenges here. You have 3 challenges, and if nobody's challenged, then you get the first ones in numeric order. That's that.
So that's definitely not how we do it, but
Not how I've done it. We get 3 strikes. We call them bullets. We get 3 bullets, and then you have challenges for cause, as many as you have.
right.
For cause.
So ours are peremptory, and it depends on
Right.
whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony, and with felonies, whether it is a capital case or not. Capital cases, like, life imprisonment stuff, you get the most. But it's like, as these things were coming up and these people were saying things that they're clearly, they could be a for cause, like, get rid of them. They're not getting rid of them. It's like, why are they asking all these questions? Are they writing this down and trying to remember, like, 19 or whatever would have been a for cause? Why wouldn't you bounce that person? And the way ours is, you fill your box, say you're 7 people, 6 on a district court jury, maybe you have 1 alternate. You fill those 7 seats, and then you, for cause, get rid of somebody, and they pick a number from somebody. That's so this is just bizarre.
We usually do it in groups of 4 for whatever reason. We'll do 4 at a time.
Oh.
So we'll do that, and then like if someone bounces someone, we pull another one in. Then we impanel 4, and then we go, okay, we need 8 more. So
yeah,
and we just keep going like that.
I also saw
we don't do
there
this.
was a case.
They went around the
ahead.
whole room, but this is a small jury. It's a 6-person jury, and it's a municipal violation case. So they have a looser structure.
Yeah. Well, there was a case recently where it was like they wouldn't let you go back and peremptory get rid of somebody
No backstrike.
that you had passed on previously.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, wait a second. I mean, things change. Like the makeup of the jury may have changed drastically when you passed on that person before. So anyway, that was interesting.
Yep.
Alternate juror, but we'll sit through the process of the trial. The rest of you are excused, and before you go flying out the door, I want to thank all of you for coming in on such a beautiful day. I'm guessing that there might be other things that you had in mind doing today, whether it was work or otherwise, but I really do appreciate your response to the juror summons, and hopefully this small window has given you a chance to understand how important it is to us that members of our community serve as fact finders in adjudicative proceedings like this. It's very important, and we really appreciate your commitment of time and effort to get here today. So jurors 8 through 19 are excused. We were just checking and have confirmed that you have no further callback obligation. Thank
Collect
you
that
once
$7
again,
check from the
and
county on your way out the door.
I hope the Mariners beat the Red Sox.
Oh, zing.
And for the folks selected for our jury, Teresa's going to bring you up here to these seats over here, and we'll have you sit in what is referred to as the jury box here in this courtroom. So if you will follow her.
We still have the old school
Officer Evers, you
buttons.
can
They hand
swing your
out,
chairs
like,
around.
a little juror button.
He went through this. They're still using this room because of COVID. So they're not in a regular courtroom. I don't know why. I don't know why.
I thought it was a weird setup, like everybody's staring at the jurors. Like, where is the judge?
All right, folks, I'm going to spend a few minutes letting you know what's going to happen through the rest of this process, to including swearing you in to try the case as jurors, and then we'll be excused for the remainder of the day and have you come back tomorrow morning. First, juror number 7. You heard already that you will be the alternate juror. Because it's a 2-day process, in case somebody gets sick overnight and can't show up, we need 6 jurors to try a case. So since we are running a 2-day process, we keep an alternate juror.
You do it?
You'll sit through the entire trial, and if at
they draw off one of them.
When the jury has finally heard closing arguments and retires to deliberate, if all 6 of your colleagues are here, you will then be excused. You can stay in the courtroom to wait for their verdict, or you can depart. It will be totally up to you. All right, folks, if you would all 7 of you stand and raise your right hand for me. Do each of you solemnly swear to well and truly try the case and declare a true verdict according to the evidence and to the instructions of the court? Please be seated.
I can't believe they go through this process and then make them come back the next day.
Yeah. It is nice, though.
How long did this process
we have standard instructions on the law, which
this was about an hour.
Explains why I'm reading them off the document here. And I will continue the instructions that we heard.
I know this. The prosecutor said he has 2 witnesses and a potential rebuttal witness that he won't call. So he's got 2 witnesses, and they're one of them's gonna be a police officer. I was called to the scene. He was there. He was previously trespassed, and they don't want him there. And they told him to leave, and he wouldn't.
Yeah, but why would they not knock this out in one day?
I mean,
one day. This is
literally
one day.
To have both of those witnesses on opening and closing. I mean, maybe an hour, maybe.
So why are they making them come back the next day? What a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
You got to find babysitters or somebody drop off your kid at school. You got to miss work for 2 days for a trespass.
Seriously. Well, they did have a big pre-trial this morning too, which does make sense. I mean, we all do that, but the jurors aren't there for that. But I get it. Like once you pull the jurors in, why don't you just knock it out?
Right. Huh.
Earlier.
That's weird.
These now apply to the jurors who have been selected for our jury. I will explain now the procedure to be followed during trial. First, the city's attorney, Mr. Sharp, may make an opening statement outlining the testimony of witnesses or other evidence that he expects to be presented during trial. Mr. Milton may then make an opening statement, or he may choose to make an opening statement at a later time. Next, Mr. Sharp will present the testimony of witnesses or other evidence to you. When he is finished, Mr. Milton may, but need not, present the testimony of witnesses or other evidence. Each witness who testifies may be cross-examined by the other side. When all of the evidence has been presented to you, I will instruct you on what law applies to this case. I will read those instructions to you, much as I'm reading these instructions. You will have copies written copies of those instructions for your use in the jury room during your deliberations.
Cheers.
After I finish instructing you on the law, Mr. Sharp and Mr. Milton will each have an opportunity to make a closing argument to you.
Oh,
finally, you will be
stop
taken
it.
to the jury room where you will select one of you to act as presiding juror. The presiding juror will preside over your discussions of the case. Those discussions are called deliberations. Until you are in the jury room for these deliberations, you must not discuss the case with other jurors or with anyone else, or remain within hearing of anyone discussing it. It is your duty as a jury to decide the facts, and you have a duty to do so. Please anyone or show your notes to anyone or Google Mr. Milton or
check
Google,
YouTube
or Google on your own what the law is.
You may
Do
not
not
check
seek
Law
out
Talk
any
with
evidence
Minor
on your
Rights.
own.
What?
Do not consult any reference materials. Do not inspect the scene of any event involved in the case.
You can't go to 7-Eleven during
And
this?
the law hasn't caught up with reality in this regard, because there's no paragraph here for me to talk to you about what is really a significant issue for jurors, and that is you're not to go home and Google Mr. Shar or Google Mr. Milton or
check
Google,
YouTube
or Google Officer Evans or Evers.
They're checking his disciplinary records. They're looking at Facebook and Insta. You know it.
Well, the defendant said check YouTube, and I did a video on his last appearance. I think that's an implicit admission that he
Shout
watched
out to you, man. It's a shout out. Take it.
That's why I'm taking it.
To do any research regarding this case, and you're also not to solicit input regarding this case. So, for example, you're welcome to tell people you've been selected for a jury, that you spent Monday here and got selected, and you're coming back for trial tomorrow, but that should be the end of the comments. There shouldn't be anything more about any, either the nature of the charge or the fact that Mr. Milton is representing himself. Those things are going to solicit comments, and you're going to get some input, and it's going to be tough for you to ignore that because it's coming to your computer. So it's very important that you don't engage in that activity in any sort of social media context while the trial is ongoing.
You a 7-Eleven Slurpee.
I will direct you not to do so.
How?
When the trial is over, you will then be released from that instruction, and then you can post any comments you want about anybody in the proceeding, me, the parties, whatever, and solicit whatever input you want, but not until the trial is over. May you do that.
Then you'll be interviewed by my
Finally,
one.
I will indicate to you that as members of the jury, you will have the opportunity during the trial proceedings tomorrow to propose questions for any witness who testifies. And the way that process will work is as follows. When we conclude the testimony of any witness, I will then ask you whether you have any questions for that witness. And if you do, you must write those questions down on the notepad that we give you.
Housekeeping. You need
And Teresa will gather them up. We'll send the 6 of you at that point out into the deliberation room, and I will discuss the proposed questions with Mr. Milton and Mr. Sharp, and then I will decide which of those jury questions may be asked. And the way I'll decide that is by applying the rules of evidence to those questions. Those questions that comport with the rules of evidence will be asked. Those that don't won't. You'll then be brought back in here, and I will ask the witness the questions that may be asked. And then I will give Mr. Sharp and Mr. Milton a chance to ask any follow-up questions based on that. I will not give the jury a chance to propose any follow-up questions. So when we conclude the testimony of the witness and I see, and if somebody has a question, then make sure it's in writing. I'm not going to give you a chance to sit there and go through your notes to figure out what your question is or whether you indeed have a question. My hope is that you will have the question already prepared. And the way that typically would work is that when a question occurs to you during testimony, just go ahead and write it down. If at the end of testimony you've either received an answer or you no longer need an answer to that question, fine. But if you want an answer to that question, then you already have it prepared, because we're trying not to interrupt the normal flow of the trial. Also, you should not propose a question trying to act as an advocate on behalf of one party or the other. You should merely propose a question as a fact finder in this case. And you should feel under no compulsion to propose questions. This is merely an opportunity for you if you wish to do so. All right, folks, we will now adjourn. We'll come back to this space tomorrow morning. We will have the witnesses ready to go at 9 o'clock. Teresa will be keeping you in the deliberation room until we have everybody in the courtroom and ready to go. And you'll then be brought back in here at 9 or just shortly thereafter. And the first thing that will happen tomorrow morning is you will hear an opening statement from Mr. Sharp. And after Mr. Sharp finishes his opening statement, Mr. Milton will let me know at that point whether he wishes to do an opening statement at that time or he wishes to wait until Mr. Sharp
That's gonna be amazing.
his testimony. But we'll start with that opening statement. We'll then have presentation of witnesses. Once we've reached the point in the trial where there are no further witnesses, at that point, I'll excuse you. I'll discuss what the instructions on the law are going to be with Mr. Milton and Mr. Sharp. And we'll bring you back in here. I will instruct you on the law that you're to apply and decide in the case. And then you will then hear closing arguments from Mr. Sharp and Mr. Milton. And then you'll retire to deliberate on your verdict. So that's a sort of a map for how tomorrow will go. But once again, thank you very much for your time. We will see everybody tomorrow morning at 9, and you'll be checking in hopefully a few minutes before that with Teresa.
Starts at 9.
Get you situated in the deliberation. Thanks, folks. Have a great evening. Sharp, any questions from the city of Lacey?
No, Your Honor. Well, what time will the courtroom be unlocked in the morning? Okay.
How early are you getting there, buddy?
Available all day. Mr. Milton, any questions?
Negative.
Okay. You feel like you have a handle on
Negative.
how it will go?
Talks like a
For the
police
most part,
officer.
yeah.
Okay.
I
I mean, if you have a question, now's a good time without the jury here.
I feel like if I'm not actually guilty of breaking the law knowingly, like it states in the RCW or as your municipal code should state, or maybe I didn't look that up
Judge Smalley
in the time appropriated or was aware of it, and I'll find out.
You didn't look up the law that you're being charged
You have in the
with?
packet of instructions that Mr. Sharp provided you, there is a definition of what it means to knowingly know something. So you may want to read that so you understand.
Knowingly
So you have that available to you.
I more or less understand the words of art in the law.
Okay.
So,
all right. See you tomorrow morning at 9.
No,
See you tomorrow morning at
good.
9.
Very good.
Okay. Thank you both.
Don't be stealing my face palm. It's my signature move.
Oh, so I'm gonna try to do
That's
this
gonna be
trial
a
tomorrow,
banger, man.
but I've got a
So
hearing.
exciting.
But this is Washington, so it's what? It's 2 hours behind me, so that's 11 a.m. Central.
Oh, that's like Washington State?
Yeah,
Wait, what?
I've got a 2 o'clock hearing.
Oh.
In the loop, man.
Oh my. I'm so out of the loop.
But you got to figure they got 2 witnesses. This thing can't take more than an hour, can it?
Well, that cross exam is gonna be just very long.
The cross exam from this guy.
I don't even know.
It could be gold. It could be gold.
Yeah,
We saw his
yeah.
voir dire skills already. I was going to take this time to get to know you, but let's not waste each other's time.
But
Okay,
why
thank you.
bother? I mean, so on this, does this particular judge leave his streams up, or do you have to be present to?
I don't know. I haven't
watch it?
seen enough of them.
Well, fingers crossed.
I don't even know if they'll
it's
do
up.
it, but it's a soft sit going to jury trial on a slushy caper. I really want to do it. I mean, what's
Yeah,
not to like?
I feel like you owe it. We're all committed now. You can't just leave us hanging.
If that doesn't belong on Law Talk with Mike, I mean, everybody does all these high profile, cases. I'm like, I've got the no name soft sit in Washington and the slushy caper who has Shaggy on his witness list. That's what you get at Law Talk with Mike.
No, but Shaggy who? Like the dog or the rapper? I need to know
You have to
this.
see the video. The judge was like, "You got Shaggy on your witness list."
I mean, to be fair, there are a large number of people in St. Joe County that are better known by their one name nicknames than their real names.
Yeah.
But I can't say them because, most of them are defendants.
Well, it's too bad. Maybe I'll come by St. Joseph County again, but that's the only time I've been in Michigan.
I'm super disappointed that you, number one, did not warn me that you were coming.
Well,
Number
I didn't
two,
know. I had stuff. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it or not.
You could have gone to lunch with Josh and I.
You know what's really weird is I pull up there. I don't even know if I'm in the right place. Okay, I just put it in my GPS.
As if there's more than one courthouse.
I
in
just
St.
like
Joe
bust
County.
out of Chicago after a hearing. Still have a suit on. I pull up. I pull into this and it says go in there. So I go and I park the car and I'm like, and you like were walking right in front of the car. Like you got to be kidding me. I'm like the one person I know in this town is right
What
here.
are the odds? What are the odds?
And I freaked out. I step out of the car. I'm like, Debbie.
Clockwork.
And you looked at me like, what the hell are you doing here?
I literally looked and I'm like, that cannot be. You know when you see somebody where they're not supposed to be and you're like, wait, but I know you. You're not supposed to be here.
Well, my plan was
I was like, Josh, you know who that is? He's like,
I was gonna
no.
go. I was gonna grab a seat in Judge Middleton's courtroom. Okay, and then I would have texted you and said, "Hey, I'm here. I'm here. I'm in Judge Middleton's courtroom. Come by and say hi if you can." That's what I was gonna do.
So ridiculous.
But I almost ran you over pulling into the parking spot.
I mean, we could have had a picture together, and we totally.
We didn't take a selfie. We didn't take a selfie. What are you gonna do?
No, I left my phone in my office the whole time. I could have taken like a secret video of you and Judge meeting for the first time, and it was gold. You guys like hit it off, man.
Yeah, very cool.
Well,
cool.
That could have gone one of two ways. And I'm glad it went the way that it did.
I've got Judge Stutzman on a video. He's on the channel.
Well, my favorite is like literally the first thing you ask him, why aren't you streaming? I'm like, oh god, I don't know. But he took it in stride.
He took it in stride. He was cool. He was in a good mood.
Yeah. It was fun. Yeah, he was in a real good mood. That was a lot of fun. He is really fun.
There's that. Although I did have to get going after that, but and then I also did want to I knew it was middle of the day and like he had work, so like I couldn't do that. But I'm like, if it was later in the afternoon, I would have been like, just let me go squeeze Mikey. I'll just I'll run in there, squeeze the damn goat, and then leave.
Oh, he would have been like a little drowned rat too, because the torrential downpour that came. It would have been a real exciting trip to the farm for you. But you better come and bring your kids, and it's like a freaking petting zoo. Like bunny. We have free range bunnies now. It's a thing. Do you want to hear my pigeon story?
Yeah, let's hear it.
How much time do we have? Oh my god. Okay. So while we're in Paris, my son Tanner and my nephew Brady are just obsessed with the pigeons. It's as if they've never been to a large city before with pigeons.
Right.
They have. And so they're feeding the pigeons, and like the pigeons have like these nubbly feet, like from God knows what, their toes fall off the cold, frozen, whatever. And he's like, Mom, someday I want to run a pigeon rescue and save all of these pigeons. So literally every time he had like breadcrumbs, he's feeding these pigeons, and like they're following me around. And so my sister, fast forward to Saturday, I had to get up early to take Tucker to detasseling to catch the bus, which is a real treat for parents in the Midwest, like 6 a.m. And there was this animal swap meet at the Amish like community center, and Beth is like, hey, I'm gonna go to this animal swap meet and see if there's any rabbits, because it's time to get our baby rabbits for fair. And so I was like, I'll meet you over there, but of course I'm running late because I'm tired as hell. I'm like, hey, if you get there and it's not worth me going, let me know. So she gets there and she calls me. She's like, dude, don't bother coming. It's like a bunch of ducks and pigeons and stuff. Like, wait, what? Pigeons? So she starts FaceTiming me, and there's these pigeons that look like he also loves the pigeons in New York when we were there, by the way. And I was like, oh shit. Tanner really wants pigeons. And there's a pigeon show at the fair. I don't know how to show pigeons.
Can you
I don't know
have
anything about
pigeons?
them, but I was like,
Don't
yeah,
they just fly
apparently
away?
people eat them. Well, we'll get there. So people eat pigeons, which I didn't know was a thing. So I was like, Beth,
It's a
let's
disgusting
pick out
thing.
2 cute ones. What? I mean, I wouldn't eat the pigeons either, but
I don't want to
I'm
eat a
thinking
pigeon.
like when I got those emus, like the emus that I got were like they had been raised since they like hatched, and they were like pretty nice. You could hug them and like snuggle on them, whatever. So I'm thinking I'm gonna get a pigeon that like will like perch on my finger and like you feed it and it walks around and does cute things. So she gets these pigeons and she asks this like a little 7-year-old Amish boy, and she's like, so what do you feed him? And he said, like, I guess corn. Like, that's kind of a weird answer. Like you don't feed him. So then she pays him $6 each for these 2 pigeons, and she says, "Well, how do you tell if it's a boy or a girl?" And he has no idea. And like this
Right.
hillbilly guy comes up, and is like, "Oh, if you flip them over and their tail covers their cloaca, then it's a girl, and if it stays down, it's a boy." I'm like, okay. So she's like, "I think I got a boy and a girl." I said, "Well, find out where this kid lives in case like I have any issues or like I need another one, like one dies or something." And he's like, "Oh, I just live around the corner." And she's like, "Oh, do you like raise them?" And he looks at her all weird. He's like, "No, I just go in the barn and catch them." What? These are feral barn pigeons? Didn't know we had those around here. So she's dying laughing. She's already paid the kid. We're committed. She brings them home, and they're just like standing in this cage. And Tanner's taking a picture. He's like, "Oh, these are cute." But she's like, "Just be careful. Like, they are like really quick." So I clean out the barn, I power wash some cages. I'm like, I will put these guys in the big dog crate type cage so they can kind of fly around a little bit, and we'll tame them down. They'll be fine. So stupidly, I open the flip top cage and I get my hands on both of them. And I got the boy in my right hand, the girl in my left. And I like fling the boy into the duck cage. And just as I like go to let go of the girl, he like whips around and he's like, pew, gone.
Gone.
That bitch didn't look back. He was like across the cornfield and like hauling ass. And
Right.
I thought if he got loose, he'd like fly up in a tree and be like, "Oh," and if you feed him, come back. He did not. So then we run into my dad's friend at the Baroque Heritage Festival, and we're telling him the pigeon story, and they're just all laughing at me that I bought these feral pigeons. And he's like, "Oh, it's like a homing pigeon." I went back. Like, that Amish kid swindled me. He sells them, and he knows they're gonna fly back. He catches those bitches again and resells them for $6 every week. Like, mad respect for that kid.
This is a $12 capital felony treason, is what it is.
This is unreal. So now I have this poor female pigeon by herself in this cage. I'm afraid to even open the cage because she's gonna get out. But you're not supposed to raise them alone either. But I'm not going back to that kid and be like, "Hey, did my gray one come back? Can you catch him for me?" But recharge me. So feral pigeons. I really thought it was gonna be like one that like perches on your finger and
You got an Amish pigeon dealer.
Yeah,
That's all I get.
7 years
That's
old.
all I got from this
7 years
story.
old kid's running a racket. So you can't make this stuff up. Honestly,
No.
It's so ridiculous that yeah. So there's my pigeon story. It gave a lot of people some good laughs this weekend. So
Love it. Well, thank you for coming out, and thanks for the tour when
no
I came by.
Yeah, I'm glad that I was there at the timing is everything, right? That's so
Well,
wild.
I am
cannot
stupid. I
believe-
didn't even look on YouTube to see if Judge Middleton would be there. So, I mean, that would have been the easy thing to do.
Well, mistake
I'm glad I
number
didn't,
one.
though, because then I probably
don't
wouldn't have
know.
gone.
Text me and ask. Like, he's on his staycation. 2 weeks staycation, man.
I could have just gone over to his house. He would be like, hey, what's going on?
I literally was going to suggest that you drive by a certain area of Fisher Lake and you would probably see him, long hair flowing, shirt off, mowing the lawn. And that you would have had your Middleton impression.
Yeah, that's a little too much. But yeah, I know what you're saying. He would have been nice. He would have been like, hey, how are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. He would have enjoyed it. He was disappointed. Disappointed that he missed you.
Oh, all right. Thank you for coming by. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. I got to hit the rack.
It's been real.
Yeah, it's been real.
I took a nap before this. I'm glad I napped before I looked at my phone.
That would have been nice.
Yeah. Thanks
I'm
for
about
having
ready
me,
to take
buddy.
one right now.
Perfect. All right. Peace out, buddy. Thanks
All
for
right.
having
Thank
me.
you. Good night.
See ya.